Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat. Resolves.
Right.
Now, before you attack,
Does anyone have an answer?
Well played.
Good game.
Hello everyone, my name is DJ. This is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and today we have a top 10 list. These are the top 10 extra turn spells, especially good in Commander. Extra turn spells are unique. There are not very many of them, but they have a really high concentration of super powerful effects. And so I want to talk about the best ones that you can put in your Commander deck. First up are a few honorable mentions. I'm not going to talk about Time Sifter. This card makes me salty. In fact, I talked about it on the Salty Cards episode with Ashlyn on the Command Zone. Check that episode out after this one. But Time Sifter, not for me, and not going to talk about it. The next honorable mention are the extra turn spells that give you an extra turn, but they make you lose the game afterwards. I'm talking about Last Chance, Warrior's Oath, Final Fortune, Chance for Glory. All of these are very cool, but I feel like they are a little bit different than the classic extra turn. Like, you need a very special deck. Maybe one that dodges that lose the game trigger, or maybe something that capitalizes so you only need one turn to win the game, like a combo deck. In general, extra turn spells can be used in many different decks that can capitalize it, so I'm going to focus on those. All right, before we get into the true top 10, I want to thank Cool Stuff Inc. They sponsor the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and remember, if you use the coupon code JUMBO5, you're going to save 5% off your order. All right, number 10 in extra turn spells, we have Savor the Moment. Savor the Moment is 1 blue for a sorcery. Take an extra turn after this one. Skip the untap step of that turn. Skipping your untap step means that you're not getting the full benefit of the extra turn. You don't have access to all of that extra mana. You maybe don't even have access to extra combat phases because your creatures might be tapped. But this is cheap enough that this could simulate just getting an extra card, an extra land drop, maybe an extra planeswalker activation, not to mention vigilance, other triggers, artifacts, enchantments, all sorts of things that synergize with Savor the Moment. Savor the Moment is really efficient, but it might not fulfill all of the criteria for extra turn, so it comes in at number 10. At number 9, we have Medomai the Ageless. 4 white-blue for a 4/4 legendary creature Sphinx with flying. Whenever Medomai the Ageless deals combat damage to a player, take an extra turn after this one. Medomai the Ageless can't attack during extra turns. Oh, Medomai is really cool. There are combos with this where you can get around that clause of can't attack during extra turns, making copies of it, things like that. But for the most part, I'm just cool with this being a Sphinx that if it connects, you get an extra turn. This is the kind of extra turn I think is perfect in Commander. Look, because it's vulnerable. You have interaction for it, you know? Any removal spell will shut down Medomai. It also has a clause on it that keeps it from getting too broken without other stuff entering into the equation. It also is just big and sphinxy and has a powerful effect. So it's kind of the battlecruiser magic that I'm excited about, and it earns its spot at number 9. At number 8, we have Temporal Mastery. Temporal Mastery is 5 blue for a sorcery. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Temporal Mastery. It also has Miracle for 1 and a blue. You may cast this card for its miracle cost when you draw it, if it's the first card you drew this turn. Miracles are just kind of fun. I wish there were more of them in Magic. You look at the top of your deck and you're like, oh, it's a miracle, and you get super excited at that huge amount of variance. But of course, Commander's a format where you can manipulate the top of your library and set these things up. So in Commander, with enough synergies, Temporal Mastery is just a time walk. That efficiency means that you can use all of your mana the turn that you cast Temporal Mastery and the next turn too. You know, if you use up 7 mana to cast this for its normal rate, odds are you're not deploying anything else to the battlefield to use on your extra turn. But if you cast this for 2, you can keep developing the board and use what you put on the board in your following turn. That means that something to keep in the back of our heads, the cheaper the extra turn spell, usually the better it is. I think Temporal Mastery does a great job of riding the line in between really powerful and synergistic if we can mess with the top of our deck, and just fair, because 7 mana feels like a fair cost for an extra turn. All right, sometimes you have to get lucky to get that miracle going, but you really have to get lucky to get extra turns with Ral Zarek. Ral Zarek is a Planeswalker. It costs 2 blue red for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker Ral. +1, tap target permanent, then untap another target permanent. -2, Ralzeric deals 3 damage to target creature or player. -7, flip 5 coins, take an extra turn after this one for each coin that comes up heads. This could have you taking 5 extra turns. So is Ralzeric better than some of the other cards on this list? No, it's not. I'm sorry. Your Ral is going to have a really hard time getting up to 7 and then ultimating. But the sheer joy of flipping 5 coins and maybe taking like 3 or 4 or 5 extra turns is so fun and commandery. If you really want to make Ralzeric work, there are ways to do it. For example, you can proliferate or deep glow skate to double up the counters on it. You can manipulate the flips. Ralzeric's coin flipping mechanic is super fun. I want to give a shout out to probably a better coin flipping extra turn spell, Stitch in Time. Stitch in Time is 1 blue-red for a sorcery, flip a coin. If you win the flip, take an extra turn after this one. And Stitch in Time might actually be good, certainly a little bit better than Ralzeric. Remember, the cheaper the extra turn spell, the better it is, because it lets you use more of your mana and then use the resources on your following turn. But 3 mana is great, don't get me wrong, but 50-50 chance is something that I'm not super excited about. But, you know, that's part of the fun of Commander, right? Like, sometimes taking a 50-50 chance of getting this huge burst in tempo is worth it. And Stitch in Time is kind of fun too. It certainly belongs in coin flip decks and randomness decks. I even think that it might belong in just Izzet decks. Tell me what you think in the comments below. All right, Ralzeric can give you 5 extra turns, but Time Stretch is a guaranteed 2 extra turns. Time Stretch is 8 blue for a sorcery. Target player takes 2 extra turns after this one. 10 mana is an insane amount of mana. It's so much, but we know in Commander that we can easily get up to 10 or cheat big spells into play. One thing that's also really critical about Time Stretch is that it isn't exiled. It was created in a time before the need to exile extra turn spells. And so Time Stretch has the ability to go to your graveyard and then you can set up an engine to get it back again. That makes it particularly powerful. Coming in at number 5, we have Time Stretch, but probably a little bit easier to deploy. Teferi, Master of Time, is 2 blue for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker Teferi. You may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time on any player's turn anytime you could cast an instant. +1, draw a card, then discard a card. -3, target creature you don't control phases out. -10, take 2 extra turns after this one. That's that Time Stretch ability built into Teferi. Now, you would think the ultimate is something unattainable, just like Ralzeric, right? You're like, oh, how is this ultimate even happening? But Teferi, Master of Time, activating in multiplayer settings is incredibly good. Starts off at 3, you bring it up to 4 on your turn, then 5, 6, 7, back around to your turn, it's up to 8. And then you get 9, 10, ultimate. So it only has to really survive on the table for 1.5 revolutions of the table before you are casting a Time Stretch for free. And the whole time you're looting. The whole time you're sculpting your hand. That gives you the ability to protect your Teferi too. You know, you really want to be in control of when you get your extra turns, right? It feels like Teferi, you play it on 4 and you don't really have a lot of control about when you activate it for those 2 extra turns. So maybe you're not taking full advantage of it. So it's a trade-off, you know? When you cast your Time Stretch, you know when you're casting it, you can use all of those extra turns and really take over the game. With Teferi Master Time, you're like, I got up to 10, activate it. All right, at number 4, we have 3 cards. We have Time Warp, Capture of Xingqiao, and Temporal Manipulation. All of these are basically the same. They're 3 blue for a sorcery, take an extra turn after this one. They're all really good. None of them require you to exile the card, and 5 mana is still incredibly powerful, but just on the edge of being fair. 5 mana can be totally broken. In a big mana format, we can get these out super fast, keep ramping, keep deploying, and none of them exile themselves. That means that your Eternal Witness can bring it right back to your hand and get that extra turn again. Your regrowth effects, put it back on top of your library with a Mystic Sanctuary. Like, there's so many different ways to just kind of go off with these extra turn spells because they're cheap enough to allow us to do multiple things in a turn and recast them over again. And also, there are 3 of them, so you have the redundancy to build around them in a commander deck. So the combination of these 3 together means that this is really broken. All right, we've only got 3 cards left. Let's talk about number 3. It's Time Sieve. Time Sieve is blue and a black for an artifact. Tap, sacrifice 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. Oh my gosh, I know that this isn't quite in the exact colors of Treasure Generation, but there's so many things that could just put huge amounts of tokens on the battlefield, like Bootlegger Stash. Like, that's gonna go ultimate pretty quickly. Zorn doubles things up. Old Gnawbone, Smothering Tithe can give you a whole slew of these tokens. How about Academy Manufactor? You know, you just get a couple token generators and suddenly it just multiplies into infinite tokens, and then that multiplies out into infinite turns. This card is busted. All right, at number 2, we have what isn't the most powerful extra turn spell, but is actually my favorite. And so it's stolen the number 2 slot. It's Lighthouse Chronologist. Lighthouse Chronologist is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard. It has level up for a blue. Okay. It does nothing to start off. It's just a 1/3. But at levels 4 through 6, it becomes a 2/4. Whoa. Okay, keep going. At 7+, at the beginning of each end step, if it's not your turn, take an extra turn after this one. Now, this is why I like Lighthouse Chronologist. This is not some salt-inducing extra turn spell. It's telegraphed. It's out there. You know, people can see Lighthouse Chronologist come down and you are sinking mana into its level up ability. All it takes is a removal spell to be able to get this off the battlefield. But it becomes sort of this ramped up Medomai the Ageless that if you put enough mana into it, if you protect it, if you find some ways to maybe accelerate that production. I love, again, you know, doubling up the counters on it with the Deep Glow Skate or moving extra level counters onto it, things like that, that you can start getting this huge effect. And taking an extra turn after everyone else is in multiplayer is insane. I pass the turn to Ashlyn, and then after her turn, I jump in and take a turn before Josh. And then after Josh's turn, I jump in again and take a turn before Jimmy. It's really broken if this thing gets going. All right, if you liked Lighthouse Chronologist, I would also check out Time Stream Navigator and Sage of Hours, because those also have really cool hoops you have to jump through really powerful extra turn effects, but not quite powerful enough to make it into this top 10 list. All right, number 1, we have Expropriate. Expropriate is 7 blue for a sorcery. It's got Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player votes for time or money. For each time vote, take an extra turn after this one. For each money vote, choose a permanent owned by the voter and gain control of it. Exile Expropriate. Of course, you choose time, everyone else chooses money, so you only get 1 extra turn with this effect. But remember how I was talking about how cheap extra turn spells are incredibly good because they let you deploy stuff to the battlefield and then use it on your next turn. Expropriate solves this problem, and it does it with huge impact. Instead of giving you the extra mana to do stuff yourself, you are stealing things from your opponents. In fact, you're stealing the best thing. Sometimes you're stealing more than 9 mana worth of permanents and things, and then you're getting the time in order to use them. And so that makes Expropriate an incredibly powerful 1-2 punch. The ability to get things and cheat mana and the time to use it all too. All right, this is my top 10 list of extra turn spells, but tell me in the comments down below, how did I mess up this list? What cards did I leave out that definitely should be in here? And am I too hyped up on Lighthouse Chronologist? Does it deserve that number 2 slot? I want to hear from you. Thanks again to Cool Stuff Inc. They sponsor the entire Jumbo Commander YouTube channel. And if you use the coupon code JUMBO5, you're going to save 5% off of all your extra turn spells. Another heartfelt thank you to my patrons. They're amazing and they support this channel. Thank you, patrons. And thanks again for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.